Welcome to this edition of In-Depth Alaska. I'm Tracy Sinclair. On Wednesday, August 13th, investigative reporter Augusta McDonnell sat down with Alaska's Governor Mike Dunleavy to talk about the imminent arrival of President Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin to Alaska. Here is that conversation.
First off, before we jump into our current news events and our political questions, wanted to ask you how you're doing. You recently let everyone know that you were dealing with some skin cancer.
Oh, I've had sunburns when I was a kid, so I had to deal with skin issues, some skin cancer periodically throughout my life. When I say it's no big deal, it's something you have to address, but it's not a jeopardy to one's life per se if you take care of it. So no, we're good.
So you're feeling good?
Feeling great.
Doing well.
Yeah, just wear your sunscreen.
That's the thing.
I'm glad it's cloudy today.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. And let's get into the big summit on Friday. It's now confirmed that it's going to be at J-Bear between Presidents Trump and Putin. Of course, J-Bear historically being a military base that was used to deter the Soviets during the Cold War. And then, of course, Alaska has additional history, being a part of a land swap with Russia. Alaska has lots of history, like historically.
We were once owned by Russia.
We were once owned by Russia, yes,
Right.
To pay for land that is now in the context of this Ukrainian conflict. So we have lots of history here. But what does this meeting signify about Alaska's contemporary role on the world stage?
In my opinion, we're the center of the world. If you look on a map, we're 9 hours from every industrialized place in the northern hemisphere by plane. Billy Mitchell, who was a general in the Army and really advocated for air power, he made that statement: whoever controls Alaska controls the world. And so, we sit as an Arctic state, we sit as a North Pacific state and a Western Pacific state. So we're actually strategically located really for the world to project America's military power, economic power into the Pacific, into the Arctic. And so I think it's great to have this conference here, to be honest with you. We're about 7 hours from Moscow. I think Washington, D.C., if you're going the other way, is about 10 hours from Moscow, so we're actually closer. And they are our neighbor, so it does make sense, but I'm hoping some good things comes out of this discussion today, or on Friday, I should say.
What do you hope comes out of the discussion?
That there is a roadmap for peace in this terrible war that's been foisted upon Ukraine, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think I'm hopeful that the discussions on Friday will lead to quicker and further discussions to end this war. But I think that's what's going to happen, to be honest with you.
How would you end the war in Ukraine?
It's interesting. A lot of people don't think about these things, but for example, the Europeans buy a lot of energy from Russia. If the Europeans stopped buying energy, I know this is kind of almost contradictory or counterintuitive, but many of the Europeans are calling for support of Ukraine in this war and want the United States to support Ukraine, which we have. But at the same time, a lot of European nations are actually buying energy from Russia. If they stop buying energy from Russia, it kind of dries up the funds to fund this war. Same with the Chinese, same with the Indians. If they did not buy energy from Russia, Russia would not have the funds to prosecute this war. And so I guess my message to the Europeans would be, don't talk out of both sides of your mouth, but in fact focus on not funding this Russian war by looking at energy in other places, like America, for example.
Okay. It's significant that the president of Russia is going to be here in terms of security for this meeting. What measures have been taken to ensure folks in Alaska are safe with two world powers essentially meeting here so close to Anchorage?
Yeah, great question. The meeting is going to be on the base, which is probably the safest place you can find in the state of Alaska. Very secure. We've been working with the White House team that comes out and plans all these things early on since Saturday. So I think they got it well in hand. The base has it well in hand. I think both the President, Trump, and Putin will be safe on the base. So I don't anticipate anything happening. I hope and pray that it doesn't. But nonetheless, I think having it on the base makes a lot of sense from that perspective.
And logistically, having this happen here, obviously you've probably known about it a little bit longer than the rest of us, but in terms of the logistics of getting both Trump and Putin here and the impact on the surrounding communities, how did this go? Was Alaska prepared to host this type of summit?
Well, it happened pretty fast. But again, it makes sense because the President of the United States just flies over the U.S. and Canada. And President Putin just flies across the Arctic to come over here to Alaska. So in terms of international airspace, there's very little international airspace, except for the president coming up through, over Canadian airspace. And Putin just has a few miles going across the Bering Sea to get to Alaska. So makes sense from a logistics perspective, a flight perspective. Having it on the base makes sense from a safety perspective, a security perspective. So I'm glad they're coming. I'm glad they're here in Alaska. Again, I always think of Alaska as the center of the world. And that's what you're going to see on Friday. There's a lot of eyes on Alaska.
Okay. Are you going to be having any FaceTime with President Trump or Putin while they're here?
Yeah, Friday morning I'll be spending some time with President Trump, and I think in that part of the discussion for that part of the day we'll be talking about things like natural gas, our natural resources, things that are happening here in Alaska. Because I got to tell you, President Trump is always interested in Alaska. Every time I see the president, he'll even bring up things like King Cove Road. What's the status of King Cove Road to help those people in King Cove? But energy, minerals, where we are with oil, very interested in Alaska. President Trump, for reasons I think are, sometimes it eludes me, really loves Alaska. We're a small state population-wise, we're at the top of the world, but we're the only state that got an executive order. We're the only state that he mentioned in the State of the State. And every time I go to DC and I meet with the president or his people, they talk about Alaska, helping Alaska, and I think it's great for Alaska.
In terms of, it sounds like energy projects that you'll be discussing tomorrow morning, what are the top priorities?
Friday morning.
Sorry, Friday morning. We both. What day is it? On Friday morning. What are the kind of key points that you're going to make sure the president hears from you in terms of energy projects?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That our gas project is progressing. Whenever we have conversations with our private lead, Glen Farm, things are working out well. Things are moving. Discussions with gas sellers on the slope is moving. Discussions with off-takers in Asia, that's moving as well. And so very positive. And Glen Farm plans on making an announcement in December when they wrap up their FEED, their front-end engineering and design, to upgrade the cost of the pipe. So far, things are looking very positive. If we get a positive announcement in December, they'll probably go to FID, which is Final Investment Decision, in January, and we'll be inking contracts on building a pipeline for Alaska.
Okay. Let's transition now to flooding happening right now from the Mendenhall Glacier overflow. It's been a concern in that area for about a decade now, from my understanding. What measures is the state taking to get ahead of infrastructure threats due to glacial meltoff? Well,
there's been work done by a number of parties on barriers up and down that river. And the reports that I've gotten today are the barriers have pretty much held. In certain places they haven't. But it's really reduced the impact of what could have been a catastrophic flood in Juneau again. The state declared an emergency days in advance of this flood because we knew it was happening. We were monitoring. And so we're going to assess the water supposedly is going down now. We're going to assess the damage. We're going to help the people of Juneau as quickly as possible. And I think we're going to have a discussion on how well those barriers held. What are some things that can be improved in those barriers? Because again, unfortunately, this is a flood that may happen every year. For the same reason, melting, rain, and just the shifting of the glacier up there in Suicide Basin relative to Mendenhall Glacier. And so this will probably have to be something we work on year after year until we get a solution that lasts well into the future, or unless nature changes things dramatically. But again, we're going to take a look at those barriers. We're going to talk to the people of Juneau and see what work we can do this fall going into the spring, again, on preventing any catastrophic flood from happening there.
Any impact to the governor's mansion?
No, governor's mansion is way far away, way downtown Juneau, so far away from where the flooding's happening.
Okay. Let's transition now to some questions about your education reform efforts. You've got 3 ed policy proposals on the table in the current special session. Where do those bills stand now?
Well, waiting for the legislature to meet and hear those bills in special session. Hasn't happened yet. Not sure if it's going to. We'll know here in a few more days. But again, we've always maintained that we need funding in education, which they now have, but we also need policy revisions to ensure that we can move from 51st in the nation up in the rankings at least, because that means that our performance is getting better for our kids. We passed the READS Act a few years ago. We're getting great results in the READS Act. We have great charter schools. We want to expand those charter schools. We want to be able to allow kids to go to any public school that they want to go that really meets their needs. And we'd like to pay classroom teachers a little bit more than they're being paid now in a study to see if cash payments can actually reduce turnover and help with recruitment. So we'll see what the legislature does. Right now, they haven't met or discussed those issues in this special session.
Okay, and speaking of the teacher bonus bill that you've put up, correct me if I'm wrong, but that means $50 million in additional spending?
That would be $50 million, but since we put a lot of money into education, the idea would be that that $50 million would be taken out of what was put into education this past year. So, a large sum of money was put in education. We believe that that money should be targeted on things like reading, on things like classroom teachers, and so that's part of the discussion that we would have.
Okay.
The 50 million would have come from the 50 million that was vetoed if that was put in for these teacher recruitment and retention grants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel that those are policy areas where you're aligned with the legislature, reading and teacher recruitment?
Well, you know, many of the legislatures say they are, but for reasons that, you know, political reasons, these policies have not gained traction with some members of the legislature. I'm not sure why, because we do have great charter schools. We just want to expand them. It's similar to the READS Act. The READS Act only passed by one vote. Barely passed. It was a bipartisan effort. Myself, Tom Begich and others, Senator Tom Begich and others, got that bill passed, but it wasn't easy. People, for whatever reason, some of our legislators don't believe that reform, I guess, really makes a difference. But if you look at where we are, 51st in the nation, I think the risk in the READS Act, I think the risk in expanding our charter schools, I think the risk in making sure classroom teachers get retained and get a bonus in doing that, I think it's worth the risk, because if we don't, I'm not sure what's going to change our position as one of the lowest performing school systems in the country. So that's what we're focused on, and that's what we want to see turned around.
Okay. Okay, and throughout the summer, you've pushed for education reform through...
Not just the summer, but all year for the past 2.5 years we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Particularly this summer, you've employed executive powers, like calling special sessions, unconventional measures, like calling on Republican legislators to not show up for the first 5 days, which would then constitutionally inhibit the body from acting on your regular session vetoes. What do these actions signal going into the final year of your administration? That
we're determined to do good things for Alaska, do good things for Alaskans, do good things for Alaskans' kids. And we're willing to work with any and all in the legislature, any and all shareholders in Alaska, stakeholders in Alaska, but to not change the system for the better and to believe that 51st is okay or it's just the number doesn't sit well, in my opinion, with the majority of Alaskans. The funding is there now, so the argument or discussion over the funding is over with. I was told by some legislators that once that happens, we'll get into discussing policies, and we have an opportunity now in this special session, and as of today, there hasn't been meetings on any of those policies.
Okay. Looking ahead to the debate over education funding coming up again in January, how are you planning to work with the legislature, as you've indicated you plan to do, to focus on policy?
Yeah, well, right now the funding is there. So that part of the coin, as I said, there's two sides of the coin. There was funding and policy. The funding side is there. It's now up to the legislature to live up to their commitment to the people of Alaska, that they were going to now look at policies after the funding was secured. The funding is now secured. So I think all eyes should be on the legislature to see what are they going to do to improve outcomes by changing policy. That's going to be up to them. We'll work with them. We'll push the issue. But you know, I think everybody, including media outlets, should ask the legislature, what are you going to do to ensure that Alaska is performing better and that we're not 51st in the nation, but that every kid has the opportunity to have a great education? What are you going to do that besides just funding? That's going to be the question.
Okay. You have another effort right now. You said that the legislature does not disapprove your executive order to create a Department of Ag by the end of this special session. You would consider it enacted into law. The legislature is saying it's unconstitutional to take on this executive order during this special session. Is it still your plan to enact that executive order if they don't take it on?
Well, nowhere in the Constitution does it say it's unconstitutional to submit an executive order for consideration in a special session. It doesn't say that. So we believe it is constitutional. And what we're going to do is start the work on separating out a Department of Agriculture from the Department of Natural Resources. And the reason we're doing this is because we have a food security issue in the state of Alaska. During the pandemic, during COVID, we had about 10 days of food here in Alaska. We were getting cut off in shipments over land through Canada. A lot of our flights were canceled. Shipping and supply chains became an issue. So if you want to secure Alaska, especially when it comes to food, one of the ways to do that is really focus on food, and one of the ways to do that is make sure you have a Department of Agriculture that's going to help farmers market things, come in with the best research, secure the best seeds so that we can get better crops, really grow an agricultural sector. You're not going to change outcomes unless you change the inputs and things that you're doing to affect those outcomes. So we're going to move forward with developing a Department of Agriculture. The legislature has a bill. I think that's great. And hopefully they hear it, they pass it in the springtime, and if they do, we might be able to meet up our initiatives and their initiatives in terms of agriculture, but we're not going to wait for that to happen. We're going to work on that now.
And you've made past efforts to create a Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, we submitted an executive order, right? And they said the legislature denied that executive order then, said they were going to work on the bill for a Department of Agriculture. Still don't have a bill passed, so we're gonna move ahead on a department.
Okay. You recently announced an administrative order to make Alaska's government more efficient. Mm-hmm. Is this fair to characterize as Alaska's Doge?
Not necessarily Doge. I mean, people can call it Doge, but really look at every expenditure that we have, every action that we have, and to see if we need to update those actions, to see if those expenditures are meeting the needs and the intent of legislation and what those expenditures are supposed to do. So it's really preparing the executive for the next administration that's going to come in. We're done in a year and a half. We're going to do a lot of looking internally at how we perform our functions, how we carry out the laws, how we fund programs, and we're going to bring to the legislature some ideas when we and if we discover that there may be some expenditures that they want to reconsider. There may be some approaches to some of the legislation that they already have on the books that they may want to reconsider. So it's really an introspective look in preparation for the next administration with a discussion with the legislature here this coming spring.
Could that mean eliminating jobs?
That's not the key. That's not the goal of this, is not to eliminate jobs. It's to have a more effective government, to be honest with you.
Okay. Sounds like a big audit.
In many respects, yeah, it can be considered an audit, looking at what we do and how we do it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What are your thoughts on the 2026 gubernatorial race? It's already got 8 Republicans hoping to be on the ticket, a large field already.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting because this is the first time in decades that a sitting governor is not running for election again because this is my second term, and so constitutionally I can't run again. So you're going to have a lot of new folks that have some, I think, are going to have some probably great ideas. Hopefully they build on the ideas that we've had that are successful. But I won't be campaigning. It's going to be interesting to watch what happens. And I'm sure that we'll end up with a very good governor that's going to lead Alaska into the next 4 years, maybe 8 years.
Okay.
Still, we're about out of time. Did you have a
Okay.
last question?
Let's prioritize here. Yes. Okay, I have 2. What do you think is the most critical issue for upcoming campaigns for governor? What do you think is going to pop out, having served in the seat for 8
people need
years?
to articulate what their mission is, what they want to do for Alaska, and what they want to see as the most important thing. Obviously, we've looked at things like education, crime, energy, food security, and hopefully that whoever's campaigning, whoever wins the election, can build upon the initiatives that we put forward. But you got to be able to feed yourself. You got to have a quality education. You've got to be able to turn on the lights with energy. And we are a resource state. We still have to focus on resource development, I think, including the renaissance, the oil renaissance on the North Slope, to help pay for government. So there's always things to do, but I think those several things I just listed are going to be important going into the future.
And what are your plans after your final term as governor of Alaska?
Boy, that's a great question. We'll save that for another interview, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Okay, I got your promise on that.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to In Depth Alaska. Please like and follow this podcast.